warm welcome to The Briefing, coming to you live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Emma Nelson, and coming up in the next 30 minutes, on Bastille Day, France boosts its defence spending. We'll look at Emmanuel Macron's push for hard power. Also coming up,
we always know we might be wrong. I mean, that's our great strength, is we know that tomorrow we could get a piece of data that would change it, but we're still willing to give you our best assessment.
The Trump administration considers limiting the amount of classified information it shares with Congress. We'll try to find out more. Plus,
we selected like 30 major artists, and most of them are local artists based in Kansai area.
We're back at the World Expo in Osaka. The focus today is on public art. That's all coming up right here on The Briefing with me, Emma Nelson. And we begin with a quote from the French president from last night. To be free in this world, we must be feared. To be feared, we must be powerful. Ahead of today's annual Bastille Day parade, Emmanuel Macron has pledged to increase military spending by 6.5 billion euros in the next 2 years. And to tell us more, I'm joined now by Francis Collins, Paris-based foreign correspondent for AP News, among others. He joins me on a very sunny afternoon in the French capital. Good afternoon, Francis. How are things looking?
Things are looking very nice, and the military is looking resplendent on the Champs-Elysees as I'm speaking to you at the moment.
They do it very, very well, albeit in rather a lengthy fashion. In fact, I think we've got some audio from the 500 Indonesian troops who joined the French parades in Paris this morning. Let's have a listen to them. That's pretty good stuff, isn't it, Francis? But it's generally considered to be quite an uneventful day. Dare we say it? It can touch on the boring. But Emmanuel Macron's decided that, no, he wants to make a major defence announcement.
Yes, he did, and of course, perfectly timed ahead of the Bastille Day parade. He spoke to the French military in the gardens of the Defence Ministry yesterday evening, and as you say, with that quote, it was quite meaty what he was announcing. To be free in this world, you must be feared. To be feared, you must be powerful. He also said, since 1945, freedom has never been so threatened and never so seriously. We're experiencing a return to the fact of a nuclear threat and a proliferation of major conflicts. I think the surprise is not so much in that there is an increase, because it's something he has spoken about many times, in fact, going back quite a few years. You may recall he once called NATO was experiencing brain death. I think that was during the first Trump administration. But given the economic problems in France, I think there was a little bit of surprise that he's gone for it with such gusto, doubled the defence spending, and effectively has not announced precisely how he's going to pay for this. But certainly the commitment is there.
Indeed. I mean, you make a very good point about how is this going to be paid for, because to all intents and purposes, France has been talking about budget spending cuts for quite some time.
It has, and of course, we have a somewhat fractured and delicate political balance in this country at the moment, which you can put down to President Macron in going to the country last year, which has left this rather unstable government where there is concern about spending, how things are going to be paid for. Of course, on the right, they're in favour. They don't mind extra military spending. The military, of course, loves it, because military always loves extra new toys and commitment to what they do. On the left, there is the concern, which you will hear across Europe, in other countries, in the UK as well. Well, where is it going to come from? Is it going to be slashing social budgets? They do have a plan which they announced a while ago, which is yet to be ratified, but it is under discussion, about a military investment fund, where effectively they'll be asking for investments from people, everyday investments into funds that could realise a profit down the road, but will help boost military spending. So some could come from that. But it's certainly part of a growing pattern we're seeing across the continent in terms of increased NATO spending, increased military budgets. We see it in Poland, in the Baltic countries, in Germany, of course. And a lot of this, of course, is down to the relationship and at the behest of President Trump in the United States, who in his first term and this term has says NATO has to spend more.
Indeed. I mean, how does this fit with the relations between the United States and Trump and France and indeed Europe? I mean, we saw this weekend the fact that Donald Trump can easily slap 30% export tariffs on the European Union and leave markets reeling this morning. And also there is that sense that Donald Trump is just one, especially with the promise of Patriot missiles to Ukraine. They will be paid for by the European Union. Things are being offloaded onto Europe, aren't they?
Yes, they are. I mean, you could argue he does have a point about NATO being not supported correctly going back through many years by European nations, and that the United States has been propping it up. I don't think that is really anything that we can argue about. There is obviously, and we've discussed this many times, Emma, an inconsistency in the policies of Donald Trump. You never quite know which way he's going to go. But on military spending, he has been pretty consistent, caused quite a bit of offence during his first term by announcing things. Don't forget, at one stage during the campaign last year, to be re-elected, he tacitly said he would encourage Russia to attack a NATO country, something he walked back. But I think when it comes to NATO spending and the increase, there is a level of consistency. But yes, you have to balance that up against the general relationship. Now, Macron does have a good relationship with Trump, and you get the impression that they look each other in the eye. I don't know necessarily whether that means that Trump feels he can't bully Macron, but certainly bearing in mind that this is a parade that so impressed Donald Trump a few years ago. He's been holding his own parade in Washington. There is a level of mutual respect. And, you know, Macron also said in that speech yesterday that the United States has added a form of uncertainty. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because that's true.
There is that sense, though, isn't there, that Emmanuel Macron has always been very pro the beefing up of military spending, and both from a French and indeed a European point of view. That idea of a united Europe militarily is something that he has mentioned before, isn't it?
Yes, it's long been a cause of his. He has long worried about the lack of unity across the military in Europe. He said yesterday that countries have to act together, produce together, buy together. When it comes to weaponry, there's going to be a military summit between France and Germany, I think, next month. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, he's in Washington this week, and he'll be meeting with President Trump. But it is something that Macron has long warned about. I mean, when he did mention that NATO was experiencing brain death, I mean, that was 6 years ago. And, you know, at the same time as he was saying that, he was saying that they can no longer rely on the United States to defend alliance members, and question whether Article 5, the collective defence clause, was indeed still active, and whether it had any weight, bearing in mind what was happening with United States support. So it is something that he's been talking about a long time. He's known to favour as well at some stage, and of course it won't happen in his presidency, some sort of pan-European force, but that's another area of contention for a lot of countries.
Francis Collins in Paris, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing. The time here in London is just nudging 9 minutes past midday. A look now at some of the day's other news headlines. Here's Laura Kramer.
Thanks, Emma. Donald Trump says the U.S. will send advanced military equipment to Ukraine, including Patriot missile systems. He also criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin, saying he talks nice and then bombs everybody in the evening. The Kremlin has responded cautiously and avoided directly criticizing the U.S. The U.S. aviation regulator says Boeing fuel switches are safe despite their link to a June Air India crash that killed 260 people. A report says fuel was cut off just after takeoff from Ahmedabad Airport. Air India's CEO has warned against drawing early conclusions. And Cambodia will start conscripting civilians into the army next year. The draft law has existed since 2006 but was never enforced. Tensions with Thailand have grown since May, when clashes killed a Cambodian soldier. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Emma.
Thank you very much indeed, Laura. Now to the United States, where the Trump administration wants to limit the sharing of classified information with Congress. This comes after a leaked intelligence report about the recent US airstrikes on 3 nuclear sites in Iran put the administration on the back foot. It marks the latest disagreement between Trump and his intelligence community, and it raises questions for the future of US national security. Washington-based reporter H.J. Mai went looking for answers.
Only hours after the US conducted a military strike on 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, President Donald Trump stepped in front of the microphones to proclaim victory.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace.
Just a few days later, Israel and Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. Republican lawmakers praised Trump for his decisive actions. But a leaked intelligence report in the following days cast doubt over the impact of the military strike. First reported by CNN and later confirmed by other media outlets, the leaked intelligence assessment suggested that the airstrike had only a limited effect on Iran's nuclear program, setting it back by just a few months, therefore contradicting Trump's earlier remarks. In response to the leak, the administration went on the offense, calling out the news media for publishing the report and launching an investigation into the leak. Here's U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
You, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard. It's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump.
A full assessment of the military strike might still be months away, but the administration's response to the leaked intelligence report and its rebuke of the intelligence community could have a lasting impact, says Sue Gordon.
Intelligence by its nature is annoying. It generally gives you its best view of what is, not what you prefer.
From 2017 to 2019, Gordon served as the principal deputy director of national intelligence during the first Trump administration. She has served under Democrats and Republicans, and before we even talked about the leaked report and its fallout, she made one thing clear.
I hate unauthorized disclosures. Almost no good comes of it.
Gordon has seen it all before and has in-depth knowledge of America's intelligence apparatus. There are 18 intelligence agencies that together form the U.S. intelligence community. They are overseen by the Director of National Intelligence, a position that is currently held by former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. Gathering intelligence is a craft that is based on data points and sourcing. As a result, its accuracy is heavily dependent on the data set and sources used to make that assessment.
We always know we might be wrong. I mean, that's our great strength is we know that tomorrow we could get a piece of data that would change it, but we're still willing to give you our best assessment.
The leaked report was a preliminary bomb damage assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA. Gordon says there's a reason why agencies like DIA conduct those assessments and not politicians or the administration.
When you turn these assessments over to the intelligence community, they are less wedded to the policy or to the operation. And truth be told, there's nothing abnormal about intelligence differing with the very rosy views of the operators.
It's unclear what data DIA had available to make its initial assessment. Initial assessments are simply part of the process of gathering intelligence information, which became much more sophisticated over the past 20-plus years.
You have 9/11, which for the intelligence community is a failure of epic proportion because we didn't keep America safe.
Prior to the 9/11 terrorist attacks, America's intelligence services gathered information that indicated a threat, but the information wasn't deemed credible enough to act on. Fast forward a couple of years, the intelligence community wanted to avenge that loss, according to Gordon. They acted on a questionable, and as we know today, false report that Iraq was in the possession of weapons of mass destruction. Those failures at the beginning of the 2000s changed how intelligence is collected.
That completely redid the tradecraft, completely redid how we talk about sources, completely redid how you break it down, that call of likelihood.
Gordon makes clear, this current issue is not an intelligence failure. It's the process working. What happened here is the assessment simply did not align with the administration's assumptions.
Every administration is annoyed when that happens. Every leader is annoyed when that happens. Great leaders recognize that it makes for better decision-making down the road.
At this stage, Trump's relationship with the intelligence community is frayed. Prior to the attack on Iran, he rebuked his national intelligence director's threat assessment of the Iran nuclear program, saying about Gabbard, quote, "She's wrong," end quote. It follows similar episodes during his first term in office.
I hope they can turn it around in terms of using that rather than viewing an inconvenient conclusion as evidence of disloyalty. If they don't turn that around, then I worry that we walk into situations blind, and with a president that loves making deals, he'll make bad deals because we didn't deliver to him all the advantage he might have had.
For Monocle, in Washington, I'm HDMI.
You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Now, this weekend, North Korea pledged its continued and unwavering support for Russia's continued war against Ukraine. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was in the North Korean coastal city of Wonsan this weekend, where he described the two nations' relations as an invincible fighting brotherhood. North Korea has already sent 11,000 soldiers to fight alongside Russia in Ukraine. Many of them are dead or wounded. And I'm joined now by Robert E. Kelly, Professor of Political Science at Busan National University. He joins us from the South Korean city now. Good evening, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
So this meeting that took place, it actually took place on Kim Jong-un's yacht, didn't it?
Yeah, because he lives like a Bond villain. I mean, it's, that's how North Korea operates, right? I mean, the elite is sort of pampered and the rest of them are sort of left to scrub in the small villages around the country. It's a real shame.
Okay, so we have this high-level meeting in a very beautiful place, at which point the North Koreans pledged what they call, it's Sergei Lavrov, who says that this is this invincible fighting brotherhood. Just explain to us a little bit more the level of commitment that the North Koreans are showing to Russia.
Yeah, well, it seems to be rising. I think this is kind of surprising people. You know, last year when this began, I think there was a kind of consensus that the North Koreans were providing soldiers basically as mercenaries, which is to say that the North Korean regime doesn't really care about its population, hence the yacht and everything else. Well, most North Koreans don't have enough to eat. And so the Kim family would be comfortable sort of basically selling its soldiers and letting the Russians use them as cannon fodder, which seems to have been the case. But that seems to be deepening, and that's, now there are more and more of these sort of statements about sort of ideological alignment, and it looks like they're closer. I think some of it is still a little bit transactional, which is the North Koreans, I think, are benefiting from it a lot. I'm happy to get into that. But also, I think they are appreciating the fact that by aligning together, that kind of gets them away from their previous dependence on China. Right, China is sort of the big patron of sort of a lot of these rogue states out there, and a lot of them are sort of dependent on Chinese goodwill, particularly North Korea and Russia. And so by going around China, they have a little bit more space. So I think that's driving a fair amount of it.
Indeed, I mean, you mentioned there the fact that it's ideological, yet there is some transactional element to it. Still,
sure,
the fact remains is that Russia at the moment, when it comes to the conflict in Ukraine, will take as many North Korean soldiers as they can possibly get hold of.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Putin has been really, really loath to do a general mobilization inside Russia itself, right? I mean, I think that's pretty well established now. The war is almost 3 years old, and he still can't bring to bear sort of the kind of forces we think of in like 1812 or 1944, where you have like millions and millions of Russians, because then he really brings the war home to the Russian middle class, and he's really tried to insulate them. And so, to keep political support for the war, and that has resulted in him recruiting a lot of mercenaries from Africa, from the Caucasus, and now from Russia, from North Korea. North Korea is pretty desperate for dollars given the sanctions on the regime. And so they're selling, if you will, their soldiers, again, I think basically sort of as mercenaries for pretty cheap from what I understand, right? I mean, we don't know, but the number floating around is $2,000, which is awfully inexpensive for sending people into a really punishing war zone.
The fact remains, though, that North Korea is, as you said, is incredibly impoverished in certain areas. You said
Right.
that people don't have enough to eat. So how
Right.
is North Korea able to continue sending such an enormous amount of support on such a scale? I mean, arguably, as you have just mentioned, the price of life is cheap.
Yeah, I mean, because North Korea is a repressive tyranny, it can basically sort of do whatever it wants to its population, which is what it's done. The North Korean military, everyone in North Korea has to serve in the military, so there's a huge pool of recruits potentially for use. The Kims just don't care about their population. It seems like what we know, again, what's coming back from sort of South Korean intelligence is that the North Koreans actually on the front are faring rather poorly, that the Russians are sort of using them as cannon fodder to clear minefields, that they're actually really sort of overwhelmed by a lot of the modern technology, most obviously drones, which they haven't really experienced at all. So, I mean, it's sort of what you're suggesting is sort of overwhelmed, I guess, by political circumstance, right? I mean, they're basically being sort of forced into a battlefield for which they're not prepared.
And just finally, tell us more where this goes next. Does this the sort of the full-scale ideological alignment, or does this just carry on working until it stops working?
I think there is some ideological alignment here, right? I mean, Russia's becoming more and more like North Korea, which is to say that under Putin, Russia's taken a really sort of fascistic, arguably totalitarian turn. And so in that sense, it's actually a lot more like North Korea now than it is like China, which still has a fair amount of internal liberalism, if only to keep the economy running. And so that actually, I think, kind of pushes them towards one another. They're both also really rogues now from the world economy, right? Russia's basically been kicked out of the Western banking system, which is why a lot of North Korean illegal monies are now flowing through Russian banks rather than Chinese banks, because, China actually wants to stay in the good graces of the U.S. Treasury Department. The Russians just don't care anymore. And so I think actually, I think they are growing closer. And the longer the war goes on, the more tight they will become, particularly, again, if they feel like they're being sort of bullied individually by China, but if they work together, that gives them a little bit of room to push back. And since Chinese power is only growing, I would imagine that incentive will stay.
Robert Kelly from Busan University joining us on the line from South Korea. Thank you so much. You're listening to The Briefing live on Monocle Radio. Now, just looking at the European markets, they are in trouble this morning. President Trump said he would impose a 30% tariff on EU exports from the 1st of August, and it is hurting. And the EU chief Ursula von der Leyen has said that the move would hurt consumers and businesses, but on both sides of the Atlantic, not just the EU. So how are American businesses feeling after this latest chapter of letters being submitted or dispatched from the White House? Well, Jordan Holman is a business reporter for the New York Times, covering management, and also writes a corner office column, and she joins us from New York. Very good morning to you, Jordan.
Good morning to you too.
Now, you've written since the likes of April about the grassroots, the on-the-ground effects of all this, the fact that people aren't buying, or people can't afford wedding dresses or get the right wedding dresses, or I think it was as early as April you were saying are people not doing any impulse buying anymore. So this has been felt for quite a long time now, hasn't it?
Absolutely. This has been the reality for American businesses since February, really. But in certain since April, I was the day that Trump first paused the tariffs, those 90-day pause, I was on the set of QVC chatting with their CEO. He had a plan, and then, you get the latest thing and you have to rewrite your plan. So that's very much been the vibe. A lot of exhaustion, confusion, and having to set up these war rooms to figure out how to deal with the changing level of tariffs.
Indeed, and it is this uncertainty which is playing the most predominantly destabilising part, isn't it? It's not the announcements themselves, it's what happens next that no one can prepare for.
Absolutely. As I'm sure so many listeners now understand, it's like you cannot change your supply chain in one day or a month. And so a lot of it is, what should I make an investment in to change? And that certainty is needed to make those large-scale capital changes. For smaller businesses, it's even more confusing. There's not a team of lawyers or supply chain experts to help them figure out what these rates are, how much it's going to cost them. So across the board in corporate America, the tariffs are one of the biggest anxieties.
And this idea that you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there are very few playbooks that exist, if any, which help CEOs and businesses actually anticipate uncertainty. They always say that the one scenario that you don't play out when you're doing your preparedness is the one that comes and hits you. So how are companies trying to not even anticipate, but brace themselves for what might be coming around the corner?
Well, I think the pandemic was actually very informative, at least on the supply chain side. The feeling that you should be ready to make a change at any moment. So that kind of speaks to the let's prepare for anything. I think the other element that has emerged since that time is AI tools, those predictive analytic tools that help see quickly okay, if I have to move away from the EU and then go to Vietnam, but now I have to go to Vietnam and maybe move to Sri Lanka, is helping them calculate those moves in real time and to just game plan that scenario a bit easier.
And just talking about what the voice of the American business call could actually do, because I think it was in April when Donald Trump put a 90-day pause on the sweeping tariff scheme because he said countries had got a bit yippy and companies had got a bit yippy as well. Whatever that means, it meant that he'd been forced to listen to what business had said. Now, as a hard-nosed New York businessman, is there any sense that he would actually listen to anything that the corporate America would say?
Well, somewhat. I think one of the biggest challenges here is that a lot of CEOs I'm talking to, one of their main trips right now is going to Washington, D.C. to meet with the White House or lobbyists, or to use their lobbyists to talk to the White House. But one of the challenges there is, while you could have a meeting and have their ear for a little bit, it seems like they'll hear you out, but then they'll make a decision that kind of goes against what is best for your business. I'm thinking especially about retail CEOs who have tried to get his ear. So one of the things I talk to experts of corporate management or corporate governance, they're like, it's really hard to trust that you can get certainty from Trump because he has just changed and moved the goalposts time and time again. And no one likes to operate in that environment.
The key to all this is Donald Trump's ability he can't be elected again, but he can try and stay in power as long as he can, and he will clearly want some sort of succession and some amazing legacy. The trouble is if you are a business and you're going to start making your customers pay for the extra tariffs that are being levied, it will take time for the United States to fill the gap with its own supply chains. But does Donald Trump even contemplate the electability of his own party in the future, knowing that people might just turn away from him?
That's a great question. I think from the C-suite, the perspective right now is that what this administration is trying to do is fundamentally change how the economy works and the global economy works. And they have to deal with that reality right now. And yes, that takes some of those investments to make that happen will last longer than Donald Trump's term, but they have to deal with this administration as it happens. So now you're hearing more from CEOs not just closing the door on the idea that they will bring back manufacturing to the US. They're being more vocal saying, okay, maybe there's parts of our manufacturing supply chain that we can bring back here that many experts see as a concession to what Donald Trump wants. Or they'll just try to say, okay, we'll evaluate parts that could fall in line with what you're hoping without promising a whole-scale change of their business model.
Jordan Holman on the line from New York, from the New York Times. Thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Finally, on today's programme, we head back to the World Expo in Osaka. And today we're spotlighting public arts at the fair. An international arts fair is running in conjunction with the expo. Its organisers are Artlog. And I spoke to Monocle's Ryuma Takahashi.
Osaka Expo is famous for pavilions from around the world and impressive grandering. But there are many other ways to enjoy this event. One of these is public art. The expo site serves as one of the venues for the art festival, Study Osaka Kansai International Art Festival 2025, displaying 13 public artworks. I spoke with Haruka Shimomura and Maki Hashizume from Artlog, the organizers company of this art festival.
Many things, but one of them is same concept, theme of Expo Osaka Kansai, like diversity and also future life, SDGs. So many aspects. So we select many different kind of artists, also searching a background and also their art history. So we selected like 13 major artists, and then most of them are local artists based in Kansai area.
Among these 13 public artworks, the piece that particularly draws people's attention at the venue is Hiwa Dome by artist Hiwa Kazuhiko, an installation that looks like a collection of white wheelchairs. They say this work is a must-see for them as well.
The reason why the art piece, they call it's a hiwadolon, that is makes so popular is it's with a wheelchair. There are a lot of the mirrors on that, so people take photos through the mirrors. So that's why that gets this so popular.
Actually, the artist is on wheelchair. I really do respect his emotion. He went through so much hard time, but he put all his thought and experience, probably many things that I cannot imagine, into the piece of art. So that shows dynamic vibe to people. Sometimes, junior high school student just come over there, take photos to be part of it. And probably they don't understand what they are doing, probably just having fun. To me, I'm so happy to see that because this is a meaning of art.
Those who enjoy and become interested in public art at the Expo can continue to explore these artworks further. That's because the Expo's public art is just chapter 1.
Actually, there are 7 chapters. The chapter 1, as we mentioned, the Expo public art. And also the chapter 2 is the exhibition called Reshaped Reality. We are thinking about how the human being is. And the exhibition venue is in the Tempo-zen. It's 2 stops by the Umeshima, which is in the expo side. This exhibition with the German institute called IKA, and with the hyper-realistic sculptures, such as the famous artists, the Catalan, the Ramuek.
Starting from Expo, Study Osaka Kansai International Art Festival 2025 holds art exhibition in many different locations throughout Osaka. These include the international area like Bay Area and Northern Osaka area where technology and art intersect, as well as Southern Osaka area like Nishinari District, full of local history and Celtic energy. For those who want to experience Osaka's energy through art, it's worth a visit.
And that was Ryuma Takahashi talking to the people from Artlog at the Osaka Expo. It's on until the middle of October. And that's all the time we have for today's edition of The Briefing. The warmest thanks to all my guests and to the producers, Chris Chermak and Ryuma Takahashi. Our researcher was Henry King. Our studio manager was Mariella Bevan with editing assistance from Lily Austin. The Briefing's back tomorrow at the same time, but for now, from me, Emma Nelson, goodbye. Thank you very much for listening.